The 2010 HSV E2 GXP Club Sport Sedan. Only 402 in total produced. And we had one. But how did it go from being saved from a car wrecking yard to better than new, and then ending up as a statutory write-off? We are going to give you the full rundown on the heartbreaking story of our one. But before we do, let's do a quick history of these cars. It was definitely not HSV's top model. Quite the opposite. It was HSV's base model and variant, as it was released as the entry-level option. However, apart from minor differences, such as cloth seats, wheel design, and standard VE Commodore rear lights, it really was not a lesser vehicle, but only different from its HSV siblings. And on a personal note, we think the standard VE Commodore rear lights actually look better than the HSV redesign. We'll wait for the arguments in the comment section. What the GXP Club Sport supposedly lost with minor changes, it made up with a limited production number and a never-before and never-again release. It still had the same 6.2-liter LS3 engine and the same manual transmission with optional automatic. And it was not alone, as they even made a brother in the limited GXP Maluyut. And furthermore, it had an overseas cousin when Holden exported the VE Commodore to the USA, and General Motors transformed it into the next edition of the Pontiac G8 GXP. In fact, the G8 GXP was released in the USA the year before the Australian GXP Club Sport, so it was likely the inspiration for HSV. With that said, let's get to our story. This was our pride and joy not long before it was destroyed. Now you may be thinking, who cares? It's only a Club Sport, or it's only a Commodore, or it's only a Holden. But any true car enthusiast and car lover appreciates the sense of accomplishment and joy another person has regarding their car, whether it's an older car that's been rebuilt from scratch, or simply a car that has been lovingly cared for since new. And also, the feeling of regret when you have sold a car that you spent a lot of time with. It's about the effort, time, and money we put into cars that we may reap the rewards of a sense of accomplishment and pride. It's not necessarily about how much money you put into your car, but rather what you had to do to make that money available. The priorities you had to shuffle around to be able to make things happen. Even if you had sold a car and it was later destroyed, you still feel a sense of loss in knowing how much love you put into it. And you are a true car person when after you sell a car, you think to yourself, one day I will buy that back. So, this is the backstory. We had heard from a friend of a HSV GXP sitting in a holding yard, with the owner of the yard considering selling it complete, or eventually he would be stripping it down and potting it out. So, we went to have a look at it to see if it was worth buying, because why would you not? This is how we found it. A sad-looking HSV GXP Club Sport, starting to be stripped and parts swapped to other cars. But to be honest, the GXP was not as bad as it first appeared. I would like to make this a big story equivalent to the typical found in an outback shed, rescued and brought back to life, but it wouldn't really be the truth. The GXP's actual state was as follows. It was unregistered. Side mirror chrome covers had been swapped out. Fender flutes had the chrome sections blacked out along with the indicators. All badges had been taken. Original wheels, and the original hood, and the original rear lights had been swapped out. Battery compartment cover had been taken. For some reason, the old license plate on the front had been cut in half horizontally. Major leather splits on the steering wheel from continuously left in the sun. Cigarette burn on the passenger front seat. Front passenger door window non-functioning. Engine light on. Running in limp mode. No service history. and a thick layer of dust, which was unfortunately the same for the inside. The upside was, it started, and it only had 102,000 kilometers on the clock, and it was cheap at that time in the market. As we go through this video, we will do an ongoing price check, which will be totaled at the end, no pun intended, regarding the car's fate. We did the necessary checks and ran the car's numbers through the system. Turns out it had 3 owners since new, was not flood damaged, and was not stolen. It was likely that the 3rd owner had it repossessed, or possibly lost it in a poker game. The holding yard owner was very incoherent on the details. So, after inspecting the GXP as best we could under limited time and circumstances, we agreed on a price with the wrecking yard. We drove the car home in limp mode on a moving permit for a total cost of $16,990, plus an additional cost of $30 for the permit. Let's get into it. Once you finally have made a decision to purchase such a car, you get it home and think to yourself, what now? Well, with any of these types of builds, you always start with a good clean. But before doing so, I removed the hood and painted it the correct matching color. Once reinstalled, vacuuming all the dust from the interior seemed like the logical place to begin with the cleaning process, which was followed by a hefty dose of good old tried and true Armor All to protect all the interior material. Then moving on to the undercarriage and the engine bay. And lastly, the exterior. High pressure rinse and a good coat of wax over the sunburnt Phantom black paint. The transformation was amazing. Well, at least a visual transformation, with no more than a good clean and wash. Now on to the primary focus, getting the GXP over the pits. For those not familiar with what this means, it refers to having the GXP, or any vehicle, inspected by a government-registered inspection station for the purposes of applying for public road registration. The GXP really only had 2 primary issues stopping it from passing inspection: the engine light and the resulting limp mode, and the front passenger window not functioning at all. Both are legal requirements. We attached an OBD2 scanner in an attempt to figure out the engine light issue, which displayed the following codes. We would then find out that both these codes point to a transmission problem, but luckily no mechanical issue, but rather control module issue. This meant the transmission did not need to be taken apart. As we were not equipped at the time to resolve the matter, we took the GXP to a local establishment to have the work done. They did the job and we never had the engine light returned since, and it was a good price. Now to the front passenger window. From experience, we know that 9 times out of 10, such window problems are usually the window regulator, which was the case with the GXP. We picked up a good second-hand one from eBay and replaced it ourselves. It's not complicated, but requires patience. So, where are we with the cost? With the rest of the drivetrain and steering and suspension, the GXP's odometer kilometers gave us confidence in their ability to pass the inspection. And the GXP only had 2 modifications since new, being the PETA's adjustable coilover kit and the X-Force 3-inch catback exhaust system. Now it was time to have the GXP inspected for registration, before we could really take it to the next level. Join us again for the next part to this story.